Today's theme, America, which means three colors, red, white, and blue. Let's get into it. We start with the stripes. Now, the car suddenly turns completely blue. That's because I changed my mind. Designing is a lot like racing. Sometimes you commit to a line and then immediately abandon it. So, we're doing these stripes. Did you know the American flag has 13 stripes? This car has an amount of stripes. I'm not counting them, but it's definitely not 13. If any historians are watching this, I apologize, but also, not really. Every paint scheme also has one part of the car that refuses to cooperate, usually the rear quarter panel. Pretty sure that part of the template was invented to ruin designers' lives. Alright, now this is the part where I convince myself I know what I'm doing. I feel like designing race cars is 50% creativity and 50% moving things one pixel at a time. There's probably someone out there who's designing paint schemes professionally, and then there's me. At some point in every paint scheme, there's a phase where I start experimenting and just hope for the best. Sometimes I zoom out and think, wow, that looks great. Then I zoom in and realize nothing actually lines up. I like to imagine the driver looking at this car thinking, yeah, this thing's gonna be fast. Little does he know, the designer spent 45 minutes deciding between two shades of blue. Now we're flipping the colors around, which is designer language for the first idea sucked. At this point in the design, it's either about to come together or completely fall apart. Sometimes I wonder if real NASCAR designers go through the same process, or if they actually know what they're doing. Right about now is where I start telling myself, okay, don't overdo it. And then I immediately overdo it. This one's from my buddy Steven Linger. His brother has a fishing lure company called Linger Lures. Go check him out. Linger's such a nice guy. I could send him a completely blank car. He'd probably say, honestly, man, I really like the minimalistic look. Okay, now we add the stars. Now we're entering the part where I move everything slightly, then I move it back, and then I move it again. This is called precision. The American flag has 50 stars. This car has more, which technically means this car represents several future states. I'm not saying patriotic schemes add horsepower, but I'm also not saying they don't. If this car doesn't win races, at least it will win the 4th of July parade. Now we add tiny details. The details no one will ever notice, except for me and the one guy in the comments. There's always that one guy. Actually, the American flag has 50 stars. Yes, and this car has like 80. Right now, I'm kind of in a dangerous phase. Right where the design looks good, but I keep touching it. This is where the car officially becomes sponsored. Which means it's now legally required to go fast. Right now I'm trying to place these logos in spots that make sense. Or at least look like they make sense. USA fact. The first 4th of July celebration happened in 1777, which is impressive because fireworks and wooden buildings seems like a risky combination. There's a moment in every design where you think, this is going great. And then that moment is usually right before you ruin it. At this point, I'm mostly just hoping everything lines up. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it absolutely does not. You might notice some of these logos are in questionable spots. That's because I designed the rest of the car first. They're not necessarily where they should go, but definitely where they ended up. Fun fact. The American flag actually has very specific rules about how it should look. This car does not follow those rules at all. Now I'm adding the rabbit from the Rabbit Hole podcast. He's just peeking out from the numbers, which honestly makes the car look slightly more suspicious. Might not be historically accurate, but is aesthetically accurate, and that's what matters. Now I'm putting the Linger Lures logo on the hood, because if this car is going to be fast, people should know who to thank. And if anyone complains about the number of stars, just remember, the car is clearly from the future. At this point, the car either looks patriotic or like a firework accident. The hardest part of designing is deciding when to stop adding things. Because right now I'm thinking maybe it needs more stars. At some point, the car stops being patriotic and just becomes space. Steven, if you're watching this, I promised it looked worse earlier. Now we enter the part where I move things a little at a time, which will make absolutely no visible difference, but makes me feel productive. Now we zoom out and hope everything works together. Sometimes it looks amazing. Sometimes it looks like America exploded. Honestly though, that might actually be the vibe we're going for. No, like for real. A firework accident might actually be the theme. So at this point, I'm mostly just staring at the car and making very small adjustments, which is a very important part of the design process. Mostly because it makes it look like I know what I'm doing. I feel like in every patriotic design eventually reaches a point where you ask yourself one important question. Is this enough red, white, and blue? answer is almost always no. One thing I've learned while making paint schemes is that symmetry is very important and also extremely easy to fuck it up. Right now I'm just cleaning up some edges, which basically means zooming in way too far and fixing things no one will ever notice. At this point, I'm mostly just making sure the colors balance out, which is designer's language for moving things around until it feels right. One thing I always try to remember is this car is going to be moving at 180 miles an hour. So realistically, no one's going to be able to see 90% of this. But I know it's there. Yep. I know it's there. This is also the stage where I start second guessing things, which is a very normal part of the creative process. Sometimes I wonder how many race cars have been designed by someone just clicking around until something works. I assume most of them. I can't wait for the guy that comments, "Actually, the stars should be slightly bigger." Thank you, sir. I will absolutely ignore that advice. Honestly, the only thing missing right now is a mullet. I don't know where it's going yet, but we're gonna find a spot. Alright, I think we're done. It's patriotic, it's chaotic, and Steven will probably tell me it looks great, even if it didn't. Thanks for watching.